Hello, Vince Graham with the Ion Group here on December 11th, 2010. Earlier this week, I gave a presentation to the annual meeting of the Ion Assembly, the Homeowners Association for Ion. After receiving several follow-up calls, I put the talk online to make it more accessible. In addition to this week's presentation, included is info from the talk given at the mid-year assembly meeting in June, as well as a few supplemental thoughts. June's presentation began with a brief description of the design principles used at Ion. We take inspiration from older towns and cities like the historic area of Charleston. This is the original plan of downtown from 1680. A 62-acre city. This area and its surrounding environs comprise a diverse mix of uses and beautiful buildings connected by a memorable public realm, the spaces between buildings that we own in common, like streets and parks. Historic Charleston includes residential uses like these, single-family mansions along the Battery, and these along Colonial Lake, attached homes like the ones on Rainbow Row and Trad Street. Commercial uses like hotels, restaurants, and offices, and civic uses ranging from theaters to museums, clubhouses, schools, a Coast Guard station, city hall, parks, memorials, places of worship, and even cemeteries, all mixed together in a compact area. This is Craven Street in Beaufort's Old Point neighborhood. It's a good example of an outdoor room. The sidewalks, grass, and pavement comprise the floor of this room. The facades of the individual homes are its walls, and trees were planted that would grow up, and the canopy grows over the street and forms a ceiling for this room. Interestingly, even though the houses are built on tiny lots and have problems associated with older homes like obsolete floor plans, windows that stick, and suspect plumbing, they still have high property values relative to homes in modern subdivisions. One reason is because of this beautiful outdoor room, this public realm that complements the houses. Another factor has to do with location. A person living in one of these homes enjoys easy access to schools, libraries, restaurants, and other amenities, and they're close enough to walk. Finally, there's economics. There's simply a high demand for homes in these types of neighborhoods, but a limited supply, which drives the price up. Contrast with a home in a conventional subdivision. Now, this is a nice brick home with a bedroom for each inhabitant, a nice grade of paint on the wall, and has central air and heating, and even a huge yard with plenty of grass to mow. However, the adjacent public realm is given over completely to the automobile. There's little semblance of an outdoor room like that of Craven Street. There's nothing wrong with this. I grew up in a neighborhood like it outside Atlanta. However, because it is so ubiquitous and lacks the character and sense of place that differentiate a place of neighborhoods like the Old Village, downtown, or Ion, doesn't command as high a property value. Here's something else that's interesting. Developers have long shot themselves in the feet. If you offer exclusiveness, privacy, and isolation, then every time a house gets built, you diminish what's being offered as the place becomes increasingly less exclusive and private. This is unfortunate because oftentimes residents come to resent newcomers. You hear them say, "So-and-so used to be a nice place until all these people came." How sad. On the other hand, if you offer a sense of neighborhood and inclusiveness, then every time a home gets built, you add to what's being offered and the place gets better over time. This is New Point in Beaufort. This is the historic district of New Point, so called because some of the homes were built as far back as 1993. Street trees with homes pulled close to define the walls of the outdoor room and so that front porches are within conversational distance of sidewalks. We wanted to build a beautiful public realm that people could be drawn out to, and in the process they would informally come to know their neighbors and thus enable the bonds of community to form. Finally, the design for Ion incorporates a capacity to evolve. This is a rendering of Savannah from 1734, 1 year after settlement began. This shows Johnson Square with surrounding single-family homes and civic buildings like public mill and oven, and a place reserved for a church. The developer, James Oglethorpe, lived here in a tent, the construction trailer of its day. Now here's Johnson Square 100 years later. The little log cabins have redeveloped into elegant multi-story masonry buildings. Street trees have been planted, churches and monuments built. The city evolved. The same thing happened in Charleston, and even though the place has suffered plagues, fires, hurricanes, earthquakes, and war sieges from the British and Yankees, it still endures and people love it. So armed with these lessons, my father, youngest brother, and I contracted to buy the land for Ion in 1995. Our original plan included 1,240 homes, including attached townhouses and condominiums overlooking what is now Westlake. But we met with unexpected opposition. Unexpected because the town of Mount Pleasant had adopted a written master plan endorsing this development concept. Unfortunately, the zoning for the property was inconsistent with the master plan, so we had to go through a political campaign to get approved. In our office is a book full of letters written to town council from surrounding neighbors opposing Ion. Some quotes from opponents. Names have been changed to protect the guilty. The developers don't have the experience, they would say. It will have a devastating effect on Mathis Ferry Road. I'll do everything in my power to defeat it. The roundabout will scar Mathis Ferry Road. Fortunately, we have another notebook, even thicker, with letters from Mount Pleasant residents supporting the neighborhood. This outpouring of faith kept us going. Many of these supporters, like Ed and Joan Ball and Ward Reynolds, would become some of Ion's first neighbors. You also had people like this young surgeon. Plans for the development are terrific, enlightened, aesthetically excellent, and ecologically sound, says Dr. Bill Rambo. And this fine lady, Maverick Architects. Sorry, this is not a picture of Marty, but I couldn't find one of him. And Renegade Mothers, who gave their all in support. But despite these efforts, as well as compromises we made to reduce the number of homes and commercial space, Town Council voted 5-4 to reject the plan 15 years ago this month. We persevered, though, and in early 1997 presented a new plan which dropped the multifamily and reduced the amount of commercial space proposed for the neighborhood. This still wasn't good enough for the detractors, making assertions like mom and pop stores are gone and can't be brought back, the businesses will not succeed, little likelihood that stores will survive, etc. Fortunately, our champions would not let up, and in March 1997, Town Council voted 6-3 to recommend approval. Challenges would continue, such as a legal case that would go all the way to the South Carolina Supreme Court. But starting with this canvas in the late spring of 1997, the land was transformed. Over a few short years, Ion grew into a neighborhood. Looking west from the East Lake Boathouse, north on East Lake Road, west on Prescient Street, south on Ponsbury Road, west on Jefferson Canal. The Ion Square also took off to include many fine businesses, what I consider terrific neighborhood amenities. The Montessori School, which had to start in what was the most beautiful trailer in South Carolina in Ion Square, eventually moved into this handsome building. Holy Ascension is Ion's first church. So from a small kernel, 11 years old, it's now Ion's historic district, we've grown into a neighborhood with a population of more than 2,000. And like Savannah, it has not stopped growing and evolving. This year saw Town Council vote to legalize accessory dwelling units. Small garage apartments, sometimes called granny flats or mother-in-law suites, provide a more affordable type of housing in the neighborhood. A group of neighbors planted the seeds of an idea last year, which this year grew into a successful community garden. I have heard neighbors talk of extending the Rookery Path, which I think would be a great idea. What will Ion be like in 50 years? Hopefully our trees will continue to grow as an appreciating asset. We might even see homes removed and replaced with attached townhouses like those on Rainbow Row. What about extra land that the Assembly owns? For example, an early vision for the main entrance to Ion called for 2 building sites on Mathis Ferry Road to build friendly-looking buildings that would welcome people into Ion. Well, check it out. That land is still there, owned by the Ion Assembly. Maybe one day the Assembly might consider selling the land to construct buildings like this at the entrance to New Point. Here's an overhead view of the entrance to New Point, highlighting the buildings, then looking at the entrance to Ion at the same scale, placing these same building footprints to overlook the roundabout. Or perhaps there's room for a scout den hut like the one behind Mount Pleasant Presbyterian Church in the Old Village. It could be built on the south end of East Lake Field. Or maybe even a small museum like this one in Cheraw, South Carolina, which might be built on the eastern side of Maybank Green. Just a couple of ideas for how the Assembly might leverage its assets to make Ion an even better place to live. Too often these days people fear change, but as I tried to show with this presentation, change can be good. The presentation on December 7th included some of the same information that was in the June presentation. I reiterated how Ion has changed from 1997 to today, and provided a brief summary of the real estate market, showing how home sales had rebounded from last year. Through December 1st, 50 homes have sold in Ion, including 25 homes that were larger than 2,800 square feet and 25 homes smaller than 2,800 square feet. Unfortunately, the price per square foot has continued to drop, particularly for larger homes. Looking at a category of homes less than 2,000 square feet, 9 homes sold as of December 1st, and they enjoyed an increasing per square foot price on average. Looking at the category of homes greater than 4,000 square feet, 13 homes have sold thus far in 2010, matching the highest point of large homes sold in 2006. I was very glad to see there's still a demand for such homes. Unfortunately, the price per square foot continues to decline. The Ion Company still owns 5 acres of undeveloped land at the south end of Jane Jacobs Street and the west end of Mobile Street. This 5 acres we refer to as Phase 11, and it's presently zoned for a single residential home. We've been considering other uses the town currently permits on this 5-acre lot, such as an RV and boat storage site or a composting area. But what we're leaning towards is a plan that would accommodate more small homes, like this 960 square foot home on East Lake Road, or these newly built homes on Jane Jacobs Street. The one on the left is 1,050 square feet, and on the right is about 1,450 square feet. Thinking further outside the box, this summer I visited Bruges, a 1,000-year-old city of canals in Belgium. Scattered throughout Bruges are Godshuis, which translated means God's houses. These tiny infill developments were constructed from the 15th through the 18th century as senior housing. They are beautiful groups of 5 to 10 1- and 1.5-story buildings surrounding a courtyard. This Godshuis has 6 homes and was built in 1713. Each Godshuis has a tiny chapel, shown here. Each resident goes to this chapel every day to say prayers. By tradition, the prayers are to include the individual or family who developed their Godshuis. This is a good thing because developers need lots of prayers. The cool thing is the Godshuis are still reserved for seniors. I took this photo of a resident standing in front of her 500-year-old home, waving to a young neighbor going by on a bike. In addition to small single-family homes in Phase 11, some compatible form of senior housing like this might be another possible use in Ion. To conclude the December presentation, I introduced my friend Tim Keene. Tim lives in Old Mount Pleasant with his wife and 4 sons. He's a highly capable professional we have worked with for years. In addition to a private practice, Tim also serves as the planning director for the city of Charleston. He will be assisting us with formulating a plan for Phase 11. We hope to gather input and present a draft to Ion residents by the end of January. If you have any questions or comments, feel welcome to email me at the address here. Also posted is Ion General Manager Chad Besenfelder's email address. Happy holidays and best wishes for 2011. Thanks for watching.